go ahead.
Perfect.
So good morning, everyone. This is a beautiful day here. I know that we're all on Zoom as we're trying to stay safe, and I know the COVID number has been getting high everywhere in Eastern Ontario, so we're hoping that everyone is taking precaution and we're keeping safe. And but you know what? It's people ask question if we're still working, and no one realized that we are our effort and our program still rolling. Requests is still coming to our planning department, and our staff has been engaging with developer and with resident and with request and inundated with requests all day long. Your executive board also has been busy, meaning making sure our corporation moving forward, and our staff getting direction from our general manager, and I also our board of director joined. We had a Zoom meeting on Monday, and we had a new. It was the AGM for the Ontario Conservation Authority. I know Pierre, myself, and Bill and Angela. We were there, and we kind of have a new board member. We have a new chair and executives. I guess I'll let Angela talk a little bit about that. And I think Andy Mitchell is our new chair for Ontario Conservation. I look at the agenda today. It's looking very light and good. So hopefully we can get you out of here as soon as we can. But nevertheless, some good and bad news also. I was talking to Sandra today. Today is a little bit rainy, and which is good for our farmer and for the grass and for our environment. And also, I'm hoping, keeping my finger crossed, I don't want to jinx it, that we look like we're clear from the flood this year. I'm hoping so. And although it's coming down, unless we have some major storm, Mother Nature really could throw stuff at us. But in the meantime, we're looking good, and we're also looking, the water level is very low. So without further ado, I'm going to get Angela to comment a few words, say a few words about Conservation Ontario, and then we can move forward with the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this Monday, as Chair Drews mentioned, was Conservation Ontario's annual general meeting. So the annual general meeting, Conservation Ontario, for any members who are new, is the overriding umbrella organization for Ontario's 36 conservation authorities. The annual general meeting generally takes place in April, and then we have 4 meetings per year, one in June, one in September, and one in December. So we have 3 more meetings with Conservation Ontario. We did, as is custom, elect a new executive to Conservation Ontario. The executive was mostly a turnover of existing members, with the exception of our chair. And in the position of chair was elected Andy Mitchell. He comes from Autonomy Conservation Authority. Andy is a former MPP, I think MPP. I think he's an MPP, not an MP, and a former cabinet minister as well. So you can have a search of Mr. Mitchell's background at your leisure. And I think he'll bring some good remarks and some good perspective to Conservation Ontario and their work, at least understanding well the advocacy process within the provincial government, and how important it is to be aware of that process and how that works with respect to the approvals work that we do at conservation authorities. Without further sort of ado, I think those are the brief remarks I have about the Conservation Ontario meeting, and all else is running well, except for, sort of the month 14 of COVID, and that can be challenging when we go from the total shutdown situation as well. So I can say that all of our inspectors and inspections are continuing on the ground. That's all part of essential services, and anything else that's essential services is rolling along quite well. So no major comments there, other than it is concerning to see the number of cases coming in, and we have, I should knock on wood, we've had a couple staff go for COVID tests, but with no one being ill as to date. So we're very pleased with that, and those are my remarks for this morning.
Thank you very much, Angela. I will ask past Chair Bill. I know you're like, if you have anything to add, or you have a supplement comment, or anything you want to, it's the time now for you. Okay, I see probably past chair Bill is not available, but we can move forward with our agenda this morning. And first, we'll have approval of SNC Board Director agenda and supplement agenda for April 25th, for April 15, 2021. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? I see Pierre and John. Any question, any overall, any addition, any changes? Anybody want to add anything? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carried. Thank you very much. We move number 3 in our agenda and declaration of conflict of interest. Does anyone have any conflict of interest? Time for it now. Seeing none, we're going to move to one of the nice and best part of our meeting. Number 4 will be SNC project update and from our staff. And I know as usual, they have a full presentation to talk about a little bit what's going on and also to share some of the good information that SNC staff has been doing in the community and around our watershed. So without further ado, we can start with the slide show. And first one will be John. Please go ahead, John.
Thank you, Chair Drews, and good morning, Board. To start us off this morning, an update on our tree planting program. As most of you know, we are gearing up to plant the most trees that the authority has ever planted on record, being 200,000 tree seedlings that will be going into the ground over the next 2 months. As part of this program and through our commitment from our Forest Conservation Initiative, we are continuing to offer free trees to communities throughout our jurisdiction. This will be the 3rd year that we've done this, and this year, similar to last, we have all of our partner municipalities that are approved to partner with us on this initiative. And we're fortunate to have the proceeds from the Art for Trees online silent auction that are covering all of the costs for these seedlings. We do have 10,000 seedlings reserved through this program. The reservation form launched about a month ago and we're mostly reserved, but we still have a few municipalities that we're looking to give away some more trees through. And we do have pickup dates that are scheduled in the first 2 weeks of May. So look forward to providing these trees to communities in the coming weeks. And we think that this will be a great curbside pickup initiative through the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Any question? Seeing none, if you
I have a question, Chair.
Go ahead, Pierre.
Thanks. Just out of curiosity, John, it's a very successful program. Should we be perhaps looking at increasing the amount that we allocate to this every year? Has there been requests for more trees in certain areas?
Yeah, great question. There certainly has been, and this year, like with the rest of our records, we've had some challenges finding enough tree seedlings to be able to plant and deliver through this program. So we have tapped out all of our local nurseries this year, and of course, we're looking to next year to make sure that we have more. Of course, there's interest for private landowners and for free trees as well. With 8 municipalities backing us this year with additional funds, it's been great to increase that number. And I think if the board and staff are interested next year to provide that commitment through fundraising as well, I think we can certainly give out more trees next year.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Pierre, for your question. Any other question or comment for John? Seeing none, thank you very much, John. And next presenter is Alison Mcdonald. Alison, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. So South Nation, we've held our annual Municipal Information Day for many, many years now, but this was the first year that we've done it online. We had great attendance, 15 municipalities attending and over 75 individual attendees. That included planners, building officials, elected officials, board members, and some of our recreation staff as well. We covered a lot of topics, including natural hazard mapping, regulation refresher, CA Act updates, of course, and our ever popular 5 Minutes with Monique Sauvé. There were also some quizzes, and we gave out small gift card prizes for local businesses, which obviously is very important to support those businesses during the pandemic. We did also record the presentations, and we sent a copy out to our attendees so they could share it with their coworkers. We know it's a very busy development season for local municipalities, so we really, really appreciated that people took the time to come and be with us and learn about our work yet again this year.
Thank you, Alison. And I did attend at the little bit at the beginning, and I had to leave around 10 o'clock, but it was well attended, like you said, and it was a great day to have and share our programs with municipalities around it. I did have a quick comment. I know that someone from the city of Ottawa really attended, and I had a conversation after, and they really didn't realize how strong our programs for the septic with South Nation. So it's very encouraging to let your municipality and your staff in any municipality to attend those days because they're really helpful and they have a lot of good information. Our staff did an amazing job, all of them. I think it was well attended and it was well presented. So thank you very much, Alison. Anyone have a question or comment for Alison? Seeing none, thank you very much, Alison. And we'll move to Pat.
Good morning, everyone. As you may recall, we renewed our annual forest contractors meeting last year. And at that meeting, it was suggested that we hold this meeting in the springtime. We did that. We held our meeting on April 1st of this year. We had a media release announcing this event. We contacted our list of contractors by email and by telephone call. We did have an RSVP list of about 6 contractors who said they were going to attend. We ended up with 2 contractors. One of those contractors actually attended directly from his skidder so that he could participate. And the meeting was held. This meeting, when it was originally conceived, was meant to be an opportunity for the contractors to actually get out and visit our properties, kick a few trees, and see what we had to offer. And COVID has really affected this meeting going forward.
Thank you very much for the update. Great job. Any question or comment for Pat? And feel free to use the raise hand if you need, or you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and participate in the question.
It's Bill. Pat, one question that sort of covers. For the contractors that sent their names in showing interest, were any of those new? And for the 2 that were on, were they new or were they older that had been around before?
The 2 contractors that attended have actively participated in our program in the past. One of them we deal with quite regularly. We did have 2 new contractors that were going to, had indicated that they were going to attend, and unfortunately they did not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any other question or comment for Pat? Seeing none, thank you very much, Pat. Next presenter is Tyler Campbell.
Good morning, members of the board. As you may recall, South Nation undertook a natural heritage system study on behalf of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell and the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. Although this was a planning exercise, there was a large public engagement component involved as well, and those activities have wrapped up, and we're happy to share some of those activities with you. Our public information sessions were viewed online over 300 times. We had 35 local wildlife sightings reported from residents. We held 15 virtual meetings with stakeholders, distributed nearly 100 letters to stakeholders in the area. Our social media campaign generated nearly 100,000 impressions online. We were featured in over 12 news articles, and we placed ads in over 11 newspapers. The final reports and draft maps are being provided to both counties this month as they proceed with making amendments to their official plans.
Thank you, Tyler, for the report and for the update. Any question? I see a hand. Archie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You said the report has been sent to or will be sent to the county. When will that date be? When have they got it yet, or when about will they be getting the report.
Mhm. I think I'm going to pass that question to Alison.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, Archie.
Hello, Alison.
So both counties have been, not in a huge rush to receive the report. They've been kind of working through this development boom, just like we have. We as staff want to get it to them definitely by the end of this month, but they're still requesting a couple meetings here and there. I think you might be aware as well, the county's hired a new planner, Archie, at SDNG.
Yeah.
So we're also trying to engage with that person just to finalize, just to get their stamp on it too. So if you have any interest in seeing a copy of that, or you want to talk more about it, I'd be happy to let you know when it goes and get you a copy of it as well.
Thank you, Alison. That'd be nice. Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Archie. Any other question?
Mr. Chair, it's Bill. I'd be interested in a copy of that report as well, Alison. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tyler, and we'll move to Omar.
Good morning, members of the board. So last month, I gave you an update of what was going on within the watershed during the spring freshet, and I was really anticipating that there would still be more to come. But really, that was it for the spring freshet. And with the mild winter we've experienced, plus the lower than average precipitation throughout the spring so far, there was almost little to no concern of high water levels. But that being said, an early mild spring melt could also mean an early low water conditions. And right now, that's what we're turning our eyes to. The South Nation River watershed is still within normal conditions right now, but the lack of rain in the spring could accelerate things moving into the beginning of the summer. And the rainfall data that we are monitoring has been trending downwards in the past 18 months. So in the past year or so, we have been seeing less and less rain throughout, especially the summer months. Even last spring freshet, although we did get more rain than this year, it still was not, our typical amount of rain that we experienced during the springtime.
Mr. Chair, Michael Brown, question to Omar. Omar, do you think that we could have drought-like conditions then this summer? Is that effectively what you're saying?
So looking into the forecast right now, the more rain, the better. So we're hoping April and May switch it, kick in the gears for a bit of more rain. With what we are having right now, and it's not just a South Nation watershed issue, it's also Ontario-wide. Most of the conservation authorities we have been meeting all together, we have been discussing the same issue. We are looking into potentially going into some type of low water conditions this summer, depending on how much rain we're going to be getting. But yeah, if things keep going the same way, it keeps going right now with little to no rain, it could be into low water conditions for sure. I mean, typically we have a water response team meeting and then we get a lot of rain, so maybe we should get that going.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any other question or comment? Thank you very much, Omar. I know how important the water is important for our farmer and for our environment, of course. And I know we're happy that we're not going to have a flood, but also we're hoping that Mother Nature will cooperate with us and send us some rain so we can stay afloat. So thank you very much for your presentation. Next presenter is Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. A couple of years ago, we started a partnership with Environment and Climate Change Canada to actually create some Western chorus frog habitat and monitor it. And this year, Environment Canada reached out to us to expand that partnership and start looking at turtle nesting habitat. So between 2009 and 2015, South Nation created 8 nesting habitat projects that would create some habitat for species at risk turtles that was on county road or municipal road allowances to keep those turtles off the road, because that's where most of them were being killed. So the Environment Canada is interested in us going back to all these projects and taking a look at them, seeing how they are functioning still this many years down the road. And it's interesting for them because they ask proponents to do these types of projects under their species at risk permits. And so they're interested in seeing how these structures function long term. So we're going to be monitoring them weekly from May to July to see what turtle activity is happening at each of those 8 project sites.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for the update. Any question? or comment? And I'm happy to see that also they're paying for that program. So this is very good news. And so did you say there is 8 sites, Michelle? Just for
Yes.
okay. Thank you. And next presenter still Michelle.
Thank you. Staff have been out this spring monitoring headwater drainage features. So these are very small, intermittent streams, and usually in the top end of a watershed. We have 60 sites that we were targeting within the South Bearbrook catchment, and we specifically focus those sites in areas within the City of Ottawa's expansion lands. What we're going to be doing with this information is over the winter, we're going to be analyzing it and providing recommendations in our South Bearbrook catchment study, which is provided to the City of Ottawa. So some of the management recommendations could include things like making sure we keep those flows moving in that system because they provide some water to downstream habitats and nutrients to downstream habitats.
Thank you, Michelle. That's an interesting project. Any other any comment or question for Michelle? Seeing none, thank you very much, Michelle. Next presenter is David.
Morning, members of the board. As you know, we track all development applications to provide monthly planning activity reports. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic and consequent process adjustments, housing pressures are still high. This graph compares the amount of planning applications that SNC reviewed and provided comments on from January to April. In 2019, by this time, SNC had reviewed 70 planning applications, 99 applications were reviewed by April 2020, and this year to date, we have reviewed over 200 planning applications. For context, by end of year 2020, SNC had reviewed 450 planning applications. It's only April and we've already reviewed roughly half of that. Simultaneously, our technical staff helps us provide comments on planning files by reviewing technical reports such as stormwater management, environmental impact, hydrogeological, and geotechnical. To date, our technical staff have reviewed 56 reports compared to 21 this time last year and 20 in 2019. We continue to benefit from customer service and process enhancements made in 2020 and anticipate a record year for approvals. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for this great update. I think Archie have his hands up. Then I'll start with Archie. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering, are we still on track as far as our timeline for these planning application and permitting process? Like with the increased workload, are we still able to get these activities done in a timely manner?
Yeah, we're still abiding by our timelines and the municipal timelines.
I can make a comment. I can make a comment on this too, Mr. Chair, through you, if I may.
Please.
We last year we had a planner leave and go to the County of Perth, and we didn't replace that position. And staff have been really working hard to keep us on track, but it's not really sustainable. So because of COVID, we didn't want to replace that position right away last year, but we will be replacing it this year. So it'll be back. It was in the. It's always been in the budget, but it's part of what drove our surplus in 2020. And this year we just can't keep up unless we hire another person. So that's what we will be doing. And like I said, it's not a new position. It's just refill of a position that we had leave us last year, but we were building it in to make sure that we didn't see a downturn with COVID. So it's very much the opposite. So we will be refilling the position that we had in the budget before.
Thank you, Angela. Supplement, Archie, or you're good? I got a comment, and I'm glad you clarified that, Angela, because you know what? If you look at the amount of the application that's coming through, and it's not only with South Nation, of course, it's everywhere in all municipalities. Construction is booming, everybody's building, and like I said in my opening remark in the comment, like I know that we are through COVID and we are trying to stay at home and work virtually like we're doing today. We're conducting our business that way. But you could see how the amount of work doubling on the staff, and I'm hoping that that will not burn our staff, and hopefully we can fill up that position as soon as possible to keep our staff pushing and moving forward. And congratulations, staff. These numbers make us. The board is very happy, and we're very proud of the work you do. And you know what? You're not holding up any construction and keeping the economy moving. So. We appreciate the work you do in our watersheds, and I'm sure all the programs that we're implementing. But for the board member, that's the testament of the work that our staff has been doing. If you look at the number from 2019 to 2021 during pandemic, we are doubling the amount of the application and the review and the technical review and all what the municipality need to be able to move forward with applications. So thank you very much. I can't say thank you enough. Thank you, David. And the next presenter is Michael.
Good morning, members of the board. I had the great opportunity to complete a landslide inspection along the Scotch River and provide some technical support to help a member of the community to help them protect their property and their family. We spent a substantial amount of effort mapping these erosion hazards, and this slope failure is a direct result of that eroding riverbanks. We continue to provide support in the community following events like these, and we'll keep our focus on protecting people and property from these natural hazards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any question, comment? Thank you for the update, Michael. Next presenter is Alison Mcdonald. Please,
Hello,
Alison.
thank you. So as most of you know, South Nation serves as a risk management office for our municipalities locally, and it's our responsibility to help our municipalities keep their drinking water sources safe from contamination. So recently we had a planning application come in for a development in Winchester, and the property is a commercial property, and they work with a number of different chemicals and fuels as part of their daily operation. This triggered a review under clean water. And as it turns out, they did have an existing risk management plan for their safe storage of chemicals. However, their new business opportunities resulted in them storing large quantities of fuel on site, and that had not been assessed under drinking water protection. So through some respectful negotiation, our staff were able to work with the owner to implement some new protective measures for that fuel storage, and we updated their risk management plan. And I have to say the property owner was a pleasure to work with, and really genuinely appreciated our help to educate him on clean water and his role, and also to help him make his business compliant and safe.
That's very good and important. Thank you very much, Alison. Any question or comment? Seeing none. Great job. Thank you, Alison. Next presenter is Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to have a chance to chat with you guys this morning. I'm going to take you to a site I went to the other day that, look how picturesque it is, right? So a lot of times I'm dealing with things where it's been ripped up and torn apart and made a mess, and we're trying to figure out how to solve the problem. Well, here's one where they're proactive, which is nice, and we don't really talk about it that much under the Conservation Authorities Act regulations, where we're actually yes, we're always looking at hydrology and flooding and erosion. Those are the main things we're looking at. But at the same time, we're making sure that when those works are undertaken, one of the tests we measure, or not me, but the technical reviewers, which I also want to shine a light on today as well. One of the tests they're looking at is, are we causing any deleterious substance or pollution as a result of the works that are being undertaken? So at the mill, they want to, you can see those sluiceways that extend out from the mill, and they're deteriorating, and the rest of the building has been turned into this beautiful, picturesque mill, and these sluiceways are, detract from it quite a bit. So they want to replace them and do it in such a way that they don't negatively impact the environment, of course, while also making sure that they don't have any negative impacts related to, like I already explained, redirecting water and potentially causing erosion or backing up water, etc. So our technical reviewers are going to be looking at that. Mike Mullaney in particular will be looking at the hydrology component of it all, and Brent Harbers works to look at the environmental impacts, and he'll liaise with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and potentially in this case MNRF, because it is a navigable crown bed, although not that navigable in August. Generally dry bed you can walk across, take a look at the rocks that are down there. So that's one of the things we talk about. Maybe you should wait until, when it's dry to do the work, which is what they want to do. So that's sort of a little Coles Notes version of one application that's come in, and we work together. We go through the process, and then our technical reviewers take over and make sure that there are no negative impacts related to the development. And while I'm shining light, I also want to take an opportunity to thank and let you guys know that it's definitely not just me. Lots of technical reviewers in this program, lots of administrative help, excellent people answering complaints and phone calls. So we appreciate everybody that's helping us through another busy season. Over 60 applications to date. So normal year is 150. So we're way above norm as well in this department. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I'm glad you shared this info with our board member and the people listening on the call. So thank you very much. Any question, please?
I have one.
Go
ahead. You're referring to our mill in Spencerville. This project is underway for this summer. I believe the Port Authority, we've just allocated the money to the mill in a grant to fund about 90% of it there. So I assume that you've already worked with the mill authority there to get this project underway for the late summer.
Well, that's the goal for sure. We had a couple consultations earlier on in the season, and then a site visit just this week, and it looks to be well positioned to be undertaken this summer. That's our goal, to make sure that all comes together. But again, we can't speak for the other agencies, but we'll do our best to make sure that happens.
The contractor that they listed for that had made the proposal for this, have you worked with him before in waterways around the mill there?
I didn't recognize the name that was brought up, but if you'd like to have a discussion with me offline later, we can certainly have that opportunity.
I just wondered if he had been involved in the process with you yet. So
I haven't met him yet.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for the question. And any other question or comment for Jeff? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jeff, for the update. It's important. And next presenter is Ben.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me. My name's Ben, and I'm a GIS database technician here at South Nation. This is my first board meeting and a chance to meet you all, so thanks again for having me. I started in November, and I previously worked at Crow Valley Conservation, and I've been working on a number of projects here at SNC to support all departments, and I'm currently gearing up to assist engineering with this year's NDMP floodplain mapping projects. So today, I wanted to share with you a flyover video that I created using our latest aerial imagery and best available elevation data. So the clip that you're seeing now shows the South Nation River as it flows northeast from South Mountain to Chesterville. And the full video will be available online after our virtual field trip project is completed, which I'm also currently assisting communications with. There we see South Mountain there. And this will go online and replace our original flyover video that was done, I believe, in 2014. So a big overhaul in terms of the imagery and the data that we're underlying to do it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome to that's your first time presenting to the board. It was nice to see you. I know we have a few questions for you here, so we'll start with our Bill, I think, our past chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really pleased to see that this is being updated because I think it was an excellent overview and I know it's going to be better. Do you have an estimated time of completion so it can be posted?
I think I'd defer to John Messman for that one. I think we're aiming to have it packaged with the virtual field trip project, but he may be able to speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, for sure, Ben. Yeah, we're hoping to publish them next month, Bill, in May, and we'll share them out to the board once they're done.
Thank you.
Any other question or comment? That's very impressive. I'm really happy with that, with the new video. So hopefully you can't wait till we see it up and running, like Bill said. And great job, Ben and John. Thank you very much. Next presenter is.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. And a final update for me on our conservation area use. This chart here on your screen shows the monthly visitation counts from January, February, and March at our recorded trail monitoring sites. These, of course, are at the trails that were open all season long throughout the winter. So trails and parks that are currently seasonally closed, we don't capture visitation at those sites. But just to compare to previous years, obviously this chart doesn't show you that, but Two Creeks Forest, for example, in 2019 had a total visitation of 390. Bob Graham in 2019, 60. J. Henry Tweed, 2019 had 1,200. Burton 700, and finally Warwick 350. So certainly we're seeing an increase in visitation. As we can expect, people are still getting out and using our parks to safely step outdoors and into nature. And on the trends that you see, most are increasing. With our Russell parks, we've got a decrease in March. We believe that's primarily due to the flooded trails and washed out entrances. We had a few weeks of some heavy rain that contributed to some park closures. And Oshman at the very end, I believe that visitation is due to our Maple weekends that we hosted there. Unfortunately, only one of 2 weekends, but you can see a big uptake in visitor counts at that park.
Thank you, John, for the update. I have Pierre Leroux, Vice Chair, has his hands up. So go ahead, Pierre.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. John, just a question. I know that Tweed and Burton are basically inside the village core, proximity-wise to residents. Is that the reason we're seeing so much more activity? The other ones are more of a driving distance from local residents?
Yeah, certainly. We definitely see repeat users in the Russell parks every day. Certainly not weekly, almost daily. So that's definitely why we see a big increase in visitors, but we do have visitors that come from out of town, primarily to Burton. I think Tweed is primarily our pedestrian walking trail, and Burton does see a lot of visitors from out of town.
Okay, just making the comment that in the future, when we talk about land acquisition and that kind of stuff, we might try and look more at areas that are closer to the urban cores so that we can try and get as much foot traffic as possible. So, thanks.
Certainly, of course. And I should add that we do have a memo going out today. Board members, you'll receive it as well, with the dates of our park openings and dates for installation of all of our safety booms. So you can expect that this afternoon.
Thank you very much, John. Pierre, any question or you're good?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
John, I am assuming also throughout the restriction and COVID, we're also implementing all the measure that we need to do in our parks and posting all the necessary signage.
Certainly, of course, definitely some repeat and recycle signs. Sometimes we've got to change them every month, but shout out to our property team who have been out at the parks every week and even on weekends throughout the first 3 months of this year to make sure that our precautions are being enforced and the trails are being respectfully used.
Thank you, John. And are we getting good feedback? Like, do we having any major issue or gathering or anything like that? I know that this is what people mostly right now, everybody's talking and complaining about. Do we have any of those issues arising in our parks?
Great question. Certainly last year we had several different compliance issues in almost all of our parks. We haven't seen any of those issues this year at all. I should knock on wood, but no, I mean, we're primarily very happy, lots of positive feedback. There's maintenance requirements, of course, Mr. Chair, as things rain and as traffic increases, but otherwise people are generally very pleased.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate the work, and please convey the thank you to the park maintenance people, guys, and we appreciate all the work in this time. Thank you. Our next presenter, I think, are we done?
We are finished with the slideshow, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. It just says site 20 of 47. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, staff, for this great update, and I'm sure the board member really enjoyed it, and we appreciate all the work you do. We move to our number 4 in our agenda is SNC request for approval board director annual general meeting minute March 18, 2021. The recommendation, the members approve the board directors annual general meeting electronic minutes of March 18, 2021 as submitted. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? I see Jerry and Dana. Any question? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, members. Our next item on the agenda is number 5. We have request of no, I think we are in
Mr. Chair, it's 5B, so request for approval on the source protection.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Angela. So recommendation, the member approve the SNC Source Protection Authority electronic meeting minute of March 18, 2021 as submitted. I see Michael and Steve. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next, number 6, it's a new business. And A is request for approval, review over the amendments to the Conservation Authority Act and next step. So Angela, that's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, this board report is found on pages number 23 and 24 of your agenda package. And basically the purpose of my report today is simply I wanted to introduce to you a process for going forward on discussions with municipalities and what I anticipate coming with any potential changes for the Conservation Authorities Act. So today, because the agenda allowed for it, I wanted to do a couple of things that would basically position us well. South Nation is helping on a number of these fronts with some of the other provincial conservation initiatives that are required for implementation of those changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, primarily those around stakeholder accountability and transparency and discussions with the municipalities. What I do see happening in the future, we had a hint of it last year. I believe it was AMO last year. It may have been AMO the year before that as well. There's a tendency for the changes that are introduced for the Conservation Authorities Act amendments to kind of come at the 11th and 12th hour, and for us to not be able to necessarily be as well prepared as we might like. So every month from here on in, what I'd like to do is bring the board of directors some of our programs and services. And the reason I want to do that is I want to have a contextual discussion with you about the sort of categories that we anticipate seeing about what's core services and sort of what's non-core services. And you can imagine my perspective as the general manager of the authority is, thinking that something like this, a series of important changes would likely, sort of drop in June or at some point in time when it's very hard to reach, whether it's municipal councils or other CAOs. I want to be very proactive about this because even last year when we did levy approvals, I know there was a number of discussions. So I do want to be, like I said, just very open and transparent and proactive in our discussions with the municipalities about changes that could come. So that's the purpose of my report here today, and it's the purpose of updating our bylaws because a lot of the things that are being asked for to date are not that complicated, but what I do see being more complicated is a situation where we're basically asked again at the 12th hour to go out and negotiate agreements with 16 member municipalities for 20 different program and service areas, and administratively, that's actually an impossible feat. So I want to, like I said, talk briefly about programs and services each month, and that's the purpose of my report today. So I already presented to you in different times the main changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, and those changes, as you know, were introduced under the guise of Bill 222, which is the Support and Recovery Act for COVID-19. The provisions are basically already listed there, that those 70% member listings, et cetera, for appointments to boards. I've taken some notes in there. I wrote this is effective the council term beginning fall 2022. These are the types of things that are not written down, but they are questions I've asked to the ministry, and I have written confirmation back from the ministry on these things. So I just want all of you to be aware when discussions come up at your council, I want you to know that I'm available to answer those. And I'm not afraid to have a discussion where we talk about different programs and services and what municipalities feel that do and don't have value. I mean, we've always tried to be responsive in that way as a conservation authority. And anyways, just want you to know that I'm very available and prepared for those discussions. So the follow-up and next steps is that we've worked as staff already to compile all the housekeeping matters that were listed in that report, submitting our audited financial statements to the minister, doing all the things that were asked in the Act requirements. Again, as I said, not overly onerous in our view, and things that we were doing anyhow. And then, the administrative bylaws, we've updated those, and will help the province in updating the model bylaws as well, because we do think those are important, and all conservation authorities should be open, accountable, and transparent. So we want to help with that. And then we've already, as staff, started reviewing all of our municipal service agreements. And we've already, sort of started initiating discussions with municipalities about different programs and services. And we think that looks best starting with the existing service agreements. But overall, I just want to, reassure you that we are on top of this, and we do want to have the discussions earlier than later. And I do think that the sooner we can sit down, it's very hard right now with the additional lockdown that's imposed, because before at least we could pop in at a municipal office. The month of April is kind of off the table for that, but I do want you to know that whether it's virtual or otherwise, I'm certainly here and available to talk with you about that. And I also want to make you aware that I've been actually appointed to the Conservation Ontario Governance and Accountability and Transparency Initiative. And the final thing is we will expect, I think in about 2 weeks, a discussion paper on what's to come in the regulation changes under the Conservation Authorities Act. And I think that that will be a time that we, again, want to engage and discuss with the municipalities and the CAOs what's in there. Again, keeping in mind that every time these things are announced, generally it's MECP or MNRF, but MECP generally will have, send out an email to all of your clerks, all of your mayors. They don't CC us, they don't tell us when that is. So it makes it very hard to have a good faith dialogue on a go forward basis. And I think that we've worked far too hard together to allow these types of process interference items to interrupt what we can successfully achieve if we chat together. So that's what I wanted to make you aware of. And today I was going to do a specific presentation, but I think, we sort of talked a little bit about the septic program, and that's, for example, a program in the 2022 budget. We anticipate that to be status quo. It's entirely user pay. It is a program that is negotiated with 16 member municipalities, and that's just an example of a program area. So I'm going to present to each month to you, or have the staff present to you each month, a program and service area, and talk about what we see happening in the 2022 budget. So with that, that's all I have, Mr. Chair, today, and I'm happy to take any questions. But like I said, it's been challenging when these things always come at the 11th or 12th hour, and with, really no possibility. So I'm just having a dialogue because I want to chat about what I think will happen. And if the changes don't ever happen, well, so be it. We've had a good discussion about the programs we value, etc. So I think we have two hands, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, three. We'll start. Thank you very much, Angela. This is a very important initiative, and I know you and I have been talking about that. I'll leave my comment to the end. I will start with Steve. He put his hand first, and then John, then Archie. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, great. And thanks, Angela. I'm always impressed with your ability to take complicated wording and simplify it down so that it's as understandable as possible. With the first bullet point, I know there was some potential confusion around the 70% of municipal, the wording around 70% of municipally appointed members, et cetera, and what that looks like. And it feels like the way you've worded it here that, again, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, where does the responsibility lie if that becomes an issue? Is it with the municipality to say, so for example, we're a small municipality, we have 5 councillors. I sit on the board, so 100% of our representation is an elected official, so we're okay. But if we wanted to bring in another individual to sit on the board, if they're not an elected official, then we have a problem. And I'm wondering whose problem that is. Is that the municipality's problem and we have to seek approval? Or is the way I wondered whether or not the wording was originally interpreted was more the onus was on South Nation to make sure that the makeup is representative of a certain percentage of elected officials. I'm not doing nearly as good a job expressing myself clearly as you do, but hopefully you get the gist of my question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I get the gist of the question. Absolutely. So I think we're always looking back at first principles and context when we look at the changes the province has made. It is clear that in some instances, municipalities seemed dissatisfied with their representation on conservation authority boards. So in answer, I think specifically to your question, the onus is back to you as a municipality to make sure that the representation you make is 100% a municipal representation if you're appointing one person, but it's very clear as well, number two, is that if you want something different, the onus lies with your participating municipality to simply go back to the minister, probably with a CC to your MPP, of course, that this is what you wish, this is the appointment you make, and then they give us an approval for that. That's as simple as it could be. I think that's exactly what we would do if you wanted to make an appointment that wasn't municipal.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Steve, that's a great explanation. City of Ottawa has to go through the same exercise because we do have representative of the public sit on the board. So the municipality's responsibility is to be addressing those to the minister through a letter through the MPP. So this is it's going to be the normal moving forward, I think.
A quick supplemental, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, please.
But the number of representatives from each municipality, like I couldn't load up 10 from North Stormont on the board, obviously, and so how is that managed?
It's managed through a couple of things. One, there is a representation by population part of the statute. So under the Conservation Authorities Act, each of our participating municipalities has representation defined by the population that they have. So that's number one. Number two, we have an order in council that also spells out what our representation by population is. And number three, which accords with number one and number two, is our administrative bylaws that spells who gets what participation at the Conservation Authority table. Again, basically at the end of the day, based on pay for say.
Great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for your question. John, please.
I guess part of my question was already answered as who has to apply for the permission to change the 70% rate there. My other question is in overview of the whole changes here and cutting out stating core services that we provide, who in the end is going to decide? Is it going to be the ministry that's going to make the final decision of what they deem as a core service, or are the municipalities that are members of the Conservation Authority get to decide what we consider core services?
So there'll be a legislative change in the regulation, I would suspect, that outlines core services. What it will also do, though, is probably leave a lot of gray space in between what's black and what's white. And so we're going to need to have discussions, I think, ahead of time about the sort of, I'm also starting a list, I should say, John, of like every time staff brings me a problem and I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, it's core services, except look at this example of the type of thing that creeps on to each of these different programs and services. So there'll be the short answer to your question is it will be partly in regulation, and then interpretation of the regulation between 16 member municipalities will be my job, which is not going to be easy. And I definitely need to start early, I think, and have some discussions about what we think is where we want to go.
So basically, then you'll be having discussions with each individual municipality along the way to decide what each one figures is their main interest.
Yeah, I think, if you read it this way, here it is for me. It's like, oh, here, we'll put out a regulation and we'll put it out, at whatever time is politically appropriate. And you can decide with 16 member municipalities what needs to be in agreements and what doesn't, and you can reach agreement all before your 2022 budget. So this all sounds like quite a process. So I think it's important that we just decide how much of this we can cut through and how much of this we want to spend time negotiating separately as 16-member municipalities on individual things. And that's all coming down to what people feel is appropriate for their levy. And I think that will vary between municipalities and what they think is a priority and how much they value the partnership ultimately.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. They're very good question, and there's a lots of clarification to come through, but we'll go through it as municipalities and partnership with the South Nation. But next question is coming from Bill. Sorry, Archie. My apology.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, this is something I've been talking about or encouraging us to initiate for probably a year now, Angela, and I know the chair and I have discussed this, and having these meetings and being the proactive approach and reaching out to the municipalities. I can't stress enough that I think this is something that needs to be done, and before the 2022, we get into that budget, and and we need to have the clarification from the province, on what exactly core mandate programs are when we meet with our partner municipalities and townships, so that everybody's on the same page, because nothing will cloud the issue more than everybody being a little bit off on what they feel is core mandate and what isn't core mandate and what the other programs are. So I compliment you, Angela, on taking this initiative. It's something that we need to do, and I know we've tried to get a meeting set up with South Dundas, but with COVID, we've just been very unsuccessful yet, is to try and get these meetings set up, and so we can have that very frank and open discussion, because I think that'll solve a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems. At least I'm hoping so. So it's a great initiative, and I think just a little, when I was sitting here and I read this and I look and I hear the comments, it's amazing, because the next term of council come in and you might have a totally different mindset about what somebody might feel is a program, and they may want to look at a program, or whether if it's outside the core mandate. So Angela, you got your work cut out for you. I don't envy you a bit.
Yep, that's what I think too.
So,
Mr. Chair, it's Mike Brown. If I could just speak a couple of words.
go ahead.
First and foremost, I just want to thank Angela, for your leadership on this issue. I mean, the reality is that when this was first announced, I think it's safe to say that it seemed kind of a bit of a blindside. I'll put it that way. And I personally agree with the description of it effectively being interference. From my perspective, as a real estate lawyer, and also as someone who has worked for some of the largest builders here in Ottawa, developers do not want to see regulatory confusion, and the status quo has worked quite well for the large, sophisticated developers. I fully appreciate that there are smaller mom and pop developers who may have access to grind with CAs, but the larger, and I don't say this in a rude way, but more sophisticated builders understand and appreciate and respect the role that the Conservation Authority plays in the development process. And, I've always taken the view that certainly in the Ottawa region, South Nation is, in my view, the most, I will suggest, reasonable. I think this whole discussion about core versus non-core is quite dangerous. And I think, if we start to get into sort of line item veto kind of stuff, each municipality trying to figure out what for them is core and non-core, it's a dangerous path, because Ottawa, for South Nation, Ottawa does contribute about 80% of the levy. And I can tell you from many ratepayers that I've met who know that I'm on a board of a South Nation have said extremely complimentary things about what South Nation does. Ottawans value the environment. It's an important thing for them. Many of them are concerned about the environment. They want to see Government takes steps to preserve the environment for future generations. They value the lakes, the rivers, the streams, the wildlife, the parks that are maintained by conservation authorities or protected by conservation authority regulations. So, you know, when this was announced, it was my view then, it still is my view, that one bad actor in southern Ontario has led to a sort of sledgehammer process, which unfortunately is going to become extremely bureaucratic, which is kind of ironic considering that, you know, in my view, the government does pride itself on cutting down on bureaucracy, yet they're setting up a process that's going to, in my opinion, lead to more bureaucracy. And I think as well that Mayor Watson and certainly the current council have been on the record that they value the critical services provided by CAs, and that Ottawa sees its tax dollars being spent wisely by its CAs that it contributes to. So all that to sort of say that, you know, I still remain sort of nonplussed by this in the sense that I'm not sure where it came from, why this sort of approach had to be applied to every single CA when frankly there was one CA in Southern Ontario that had acted poorly and had been the subject of investigations. And even on that particular CA, I understand that things have been done to create accountability where perhaps it was missing. On the flip side, just the other note I would say is that certainly for Ottawa, 50% of the members they appoint to the board are elected and 50% of the members are not. Myself, I'm a lawyer. I know Jerry is a very well-known you know, professional in the business community. He's written many books on international business, and he's written other books as well on local history, etc. You know, in the past, we've had engineers serve on the board for Ottawa as well. So, you know, I think once again, this interference is unfortunate. We'll deal with it. I'm relieved that Angela is, in my opinion, probably one of the few GMs who is at the forefront of this and is anticipating what may be coming down the pipe. But I just think it's entirely unfortunate because it's painting all CAs with the brush of one. And that's really too bad because I think it's a waste of time. I think it will just add to more additional work that wasn't really necessary. And ultimately, you know, as members of our municipalities, we have the power, if we truly want to, under the current CA Act, to enforce, if we really wanted to, line item vetoes on the budget through certain mechanisms set out in the Conservation Act. I want to stress, I pride myself on the fact that Ottawa has never resorted to that kind of heavy-handed tactic because they see the value. And even though I'm sure it could be demonstrated that not all of the 80% of the levy paid by Ottawa is spent within the borders of Ottawa, I'm very confident of that. I've never once heard a member of council or the mayor remark that this is a terrible or terribly unfortunate thing because they see the value in these parks, in these other services, which members of our community can drive out to and enjoy that are outside the borders of Ottawa. That's it.
Thank you, Michael. Well said, and there is a lots of good point. I kind of echo most of the lots of comment that you made, but and I really appreciate your comments, and I'll leave it at that for now till I say my comment at the end. But I will move now to past Chair Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of comments and then a few questions, and I'm sorry to group them all together, but here we go. One of the reasons the conservation authorities were set up in the 1940s was so that local municipalities, local areas would have control of what happens in their area and be able to work it through. And I think we should never forget that. And sometimes I think some of the MPPs forgot that because of demands that were being made on them and that spread around. I went to a number of meetings 3-4 years ago when we were discussing the changes that should come to the Conservation Act. And one of the things that surprised me and astounded me actually was that a number of representatives from conservation authorities in this eastern area wanted, number one, the ministry to tell them what to do. They wanted more direct information. Secondly, they wanted more money. Well, number one, I think we're going to be told, but number two, I don't think we're going to be getting much more money. And that was stated during those discussions, but I think some of it may not have been heard. So those are general comments that I want to comment on, and it goes along sort of with some of the comments the previous speaker made. My questions, Mr. Chair, is when we approve this recommendation, will copies of this information be sent out to all municipalities in our area? And I ask that question because in our SD&G area, no, let me say another thing. I believe that all of you members take your responsibility seriously with making sure your municipalities are up to date and know what's happening. But a few of the municipalities do not have direct representation. And one of the things I've taken on doing over the last several years is making sure I'm in contact with the two municipalities in SD&G that do not have direct representation, including getting them copies of the budget and seeing if they have any questions or comments, and just making contact occasionally. But getting back to the first question, when we approve this information, will this be circulated, and each meeting when we approve or update information, will it be circulated directly to municipalities? And that would mean that we who are representative would be able to follow through in our presentations to our councils.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please go ahead, Angela.
Yes, I think that that's essential. And as I said, what I anticipate is some type of a discussion paper to be available in the future prior to the regulations dropping. That could be not what happens. The regulations could also drop. And based on what's occurred in the past, I would anticipate that information being circulated probably to mayors. And so it's usually our mayors that happen to be board members, e.g. Mr. LaRue, Mr. Saint-Amour, and others, Mr. Desjardins, that get the information. We don't get it as staff, and we don't get it generally as independent council members. So we rely on the mayors to, as soon as you get it, to flip it to us, and then we'll hopefully send out something that's easy for the municipalities to understand and to work with us on. Because the other thing that's been happening in the past practice, at least, is that the MECP will set up a meeting with the mayor of a municipality that we're not invited to, I would also add. And I just don't think that's productive for how we've got to roll this out. So I think, like I said, we'll expect something soon. I'm going to update the list. And as you know, sometimes when that circular goes out, I'll send a response to all of the mayors and whatnot. So just relying on board members that are not mayors to communicate back to your councils that we expect this to come out, and that even though generally, at first instance, it may seem confusing, hopefully we can just work through it in a clear way, because ultimately it's us that needs to implement it.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, second question through you to General Manager Angela. Your recent appointment to the committee, can you say a few words about what that committee, or do you know at this stage what that committee is, what its objectives are,
Sure.
and who will be chairing it?
Yeah, I think the short answer is that the job of the committee that I'm on is to make sure that whether there's 10 things listed in a letter or listed in legislative amendments, that the municipalities and the boards understand what they have to do to reply to that, what they have to send to the minister. And then I generally just do what Steve Dencham mentioned. I just kind of Coles notes it down and say, yes, there's a lot of questions, but ultimately it just looks like a letter like this with a CC to your MPP. And that's what I try to do, is to distill all of the actions required and make sure that all of the GMs know what to do, and to explain to our own board what it is we have to do under those different changes. So like I said, as a CA that already has a lot of municipal agreements, it's not hard for us to get started. But I just imagine a context where conservation authorities without any partner agreements with municipalities, without any type of memorandum of understandings, are going to be totally in the dark. And it effectively, we all know this impacts the 2022 budget. So this is essential. There was talk of this transition plan and other things, but what we don't really require, I don't think, is another layer of confusion to add to it. If we want to have a plan where we discuss certain things, I think we would always do that with our member municipalities, because ultimately it's also them who are paying for the work that we do. So I think there's a lot of, I tend to agree that there's a lot of bureaucratization that's been added to this process. So I'm just trying to help keep it as simple as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could ask my final question, and may I say that I appreciate the comments that GM Angela has made, and I know she will take some good common sense and direction to Conservation Ontario areas. I also know that there are other authorities in Ontario that are now in contact with Angela and our authority because they believe some of the things we're doing are worthwhile and are positive. Last question. We have 16 municipalities, and my question is, do we deal with septic in all of those, and do we have any additional areas where we deal with septic?
So no, North Glengarry is one we don't have, and the Leeds Grenville is also with the Leeds Grenville Health Unit. And then the additional municipalities we do have that are jurisdictional extensions for septic include the City of Cornwall, City of Hawkesbury, East Hawkesbury, as well as all of Champlain Township.
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Past Chair, and I really appreciate the comment. Any other member have a question or comment? Thanks. I'll just offer a few comments. I know that we discussed lots around this topic, but I do commend Angela on her proactive approach. I know there is a discussion paper. We need to discuss it in municipalities. And I look at around the table, and the representative that's sitting right now around this Zoom call or a virtual meeting, most of us are representative of municipalities, and some of us are mayors, and some of us are public representative. But our job as a board member is to have this conversation open between us, and that's why we represent our municipalities. I know at the beginning of the term, the vice chair, myself, and the past chair, and the general manager, it is our intention to visit our 16 municipality and have a real conversation concerning the work, what's core, what's not core. And I totally understand, and I agree with Michael, like going down that, it's a slippery slope. And we do offer services and we do offer programs that, yeah, we're unique to the municipality that we represent. And I also, from a perspective of workload, the way I'm looking at it, and I want to talk to Angela, and we should address this as soon as possible before budget 2022, and we should maybe talk to the municipality that they really want to have a discussion, because from a perspective of the city of Ottawa, we are okay with everything what the South Nation has been doing. We're very proud and happy with the services that they provide with the program. And I've been in talk with our mayor and of our general manager at the city. So if there is any issue or any items arise, I will address it right away with Angela, and I encourage you to do the same. Archie and I, we've been discussing this for almost 6-7 months, and I know COVID has been really putting a lots of emphasis, restriction on our meetings, but we really have those conversations with the municipality that have concern. And I encourage all of the board members between now and next meeting and in the next months, have a conversation with Angela and myself, and we will be circulating the discussion paper talk about a core mandate. But I also encourage, if there is any issue, don't wait to 11 hours to address them. Let's do them right now. So as a chair and a board member that they're listening to me this morning, I'm hoping that we'll have those conversations before budget 2022. And I encourage any mayor have an issue or they want a more clarification on what is core and not core, to address them with us as soon as possible. We are available through Zoom. I know the vice chair and I and the past chair were available to have a Zoom call. We can we can facilitate that, and the general manager will be happy to participate, and we can discuss those. We apologize, we're not going to be able to do site visit to all of you, but I mean, these are important discussion, and we need to address them before budget 2022 comes. So those are my comment I offer, and if there is any other question, or I'll be more than happy to answer them. But Angela, is it? Are you agreeing with some of the proposal I'm giving away to municipalities around?
Oh, absolutely. We're there and we're ready.
Thank you very much, Angela. No, without further, I see there is no more question and discussion. So thank you very much for being proactive and providing these discussion now, not later. So we have are we going to move to the recommendation, Angela?
Please.
The board of director approved the overview of amendments on proclaimed amendment to the Conservation Authority Act and next steps recommended by staff. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I see Jerry and Bill. All in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you very much for this. And we'll move to our next item in the agenda. It's item 6B, page 25 to 72. And the request for approval for administrative bylaw amendment. And I think Eric.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. You will find my report on page 25 of your agenda package. Angela has just kindly refreshed our memories on these first phase of amendments the province has done to the Conservation Authorities Act. Remember that the amendments proclaimed so far primarily address governance, municipal appointees, terms of officers, and public transparency. So practically all these proclaimed amendments are consistent with the authority's current administrative bylaws, traditions, and public accountability practices. Nevertheless, staff thought it would be prudent to undertake a small update to the administrative bylaws. And so these housekeeping amendments ensure clarity and alignment with the language introduced in the Act. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Eric. I see Angela's, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, just one thing to note on here. It's we had it in, we took it out. The appointment of a municipal representative is like, or sorry, a municipal and agricultural representative is like a hypothetical piece introduced in by the amendment to the Conservation Authorities Act. So what we didn't put in there was any hypothetical. That doesn't mean we're not supportive of an agricultural rep on the board. So Eric, when he drafted the bylaws, had it in there, agricultural representative under membership with a bracket of, minister may appoint. And then there's a list of things that member may or may not vote on. So that's the one change we didn't put in, but we have drafted should we receive an appointment from the minister. So I just put that out there because I know we have some, I think DFA or maybe some SFA, Dundas Federation of Agriculture and Stormont Federation of Agriculture members within our own board. So it's not that we've overlooked that one. We just didn't want to put like a bizarre hypothetical into the bylaws at this time, but we have it drafted if we get an appointment from the agricultural community from the minister. So that's how it's worded. So we just have its omission right now, but it's not overlooked and it's not drafted. So just wanted to make that comment before we discuss.
I agree with you, Angela, and I'm glad that we have that room in our bylaw, and I know that, and then that's not necessary for not necessary. That could be the minister appoint someone or not. Am I correct on that one? And the discussion of
it's just permissive. It may be appointed or it may not be appointed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Angela. I have a few questions for you. We start with Archie and Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I got two. I agree with the report. I guess the two issues or questions I got are in the electronic participation of the meeting. Like obviously under emergency management situations like we're in now, South Nation, as most municipalities or cities are, already knee deep in virtual meetings. I know in South Dundas's case, we expanded that so that when we're not in an emergency management situation or emergency under the Emergency Act, that if an individual, a director, or in South Dundas's case, a counselor was, incapacitated due to an injury or a sickness that maybe didn't prevent him from him or her from being lucid in the mind. Some people say that could eliminate me, but whether sorry about that. Well, I got off track there, but I'm just wondering if the board of directors would consider that if an individual got, had a family commitment, he couldn't maybe make it to a board meeting when things get back to normal, if they would be able to take part in a board meeting virtually, I guess, and partake, with quorum, take part in quorum and vote and whatnot.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a comment. Archie, first and foremost, I agree with your sentiments. Now, I know from my previous term on this board between 2008 and 2015 that I would occasionally attend board meetings by telephone. However, and it wasn't for lack of wanting me to be able to vote. If I'm not mistaken, I think there were provisions in the Conservation Authorities Act at that time that required that while I could attend the meeting and I could certainly, if I was recognized by the chair, speak on an item, I was not able to formally vote on an item. Now, I know during the pandemic, certain regulations were passed, but and I don't know I don't know the answer off the top of my head, and I don't expect necessarily Angela will either. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, Angela, that at least for the moment, the regulations that allow us to meet and vote in a remote setting right now are tied to the pandemic. I don't think, as far as I know, that the CA Act has been completely amended to say this can be status quo ante going forward. Am I right on that?
That is correct, Michael. And I think that I don't think that I think, Archie, we could have that discussion as we go forward, because I think a best practice will drop to municipalities, and I think we would probably just follow suit with whatever the municipality is ultimately allowed to do, because what Michael's saying is correct. All of the provisions for us meeting right now remotely are kind of all linked back to the pandemic. So I think we'll just have to watch for the best practice, as would a municipality and our own act, to make sure that we're in compliance with that. So we would definitely want to facilitate that. It's just we want to make sure that that will be a best practice at the time. And the other part, I think the open session meeting is not as complicated generally as the closed session. The closed session component always had with it in the past, and I think in the future would bring back to it that element of never knowing who else was potentially listening in closed session, and that was always the session that had the more restrictions on it. So open session versus closed session also in the legislation before generally had sort of different overriders, if you will. So I think definitely we'll facilitate that, and it's always been our intent to facilitate it. We just got to make sure it's not sort of not allowed by the, as Michael said and others, the overriding legislation.
Okay, that's great, Angela, and thank you, Michael, and Mr. Chair. And I think we need to look at this. I don't think a person should be taking part in a meeting electronically, virtually, if they're sitting their butt on a beach in Jamaica. But I mean, if for family issues or health issues, or that makes the attendance of actual in-person attendance maybe impossible. But if I want to sit and sip Mai Tais on a beach in Jamaica, I shouldn't be part of I shouldn't be part of a meeting. So there would have to be conditions in there. My other issue, I guess, or not issue, my question is, I guess, under the complaint portion of the bylaw here, Angela, and if you will, like section 71, like, for as far as and it's on page 62 in the main part of the agenda, and maybe I'm not misunderstanding it 100%, but the formal complaint, if a formal complaint against a director we would be dealing with that in-house by setting up a committee. Am I getting that right?
That was the process that we had that was approved in the past anyways. I think that there is a process being introduced at the municipal level that incorporates more stringent process. Is that right, Archie? I think
Yeah.
is that where that's
Yeah,
where your
and
question is going?
if there's a
Yeah.
formal complaint, a council doesn't, you bring in an outside source, an ombudsman or whatever to deal with that complaint. And I'm just wondering, if we should maybe not be looking at something like that. We don't want to, make it look like we're policing ourselves if there is an issue or a complaint or whatever. That would be my other concern about that, whether or not we should be looking at an outside representation, whether it's an ombudsman or whatever, similar to what municipalities have to do.
And I think that's a good point, and I'll speak to this one. The informal complaint procedure I think is probably appropriate. The formal complaint procedure, and what I've heard from municipalities and others, and we may get one more change in our legislation that require us to appoint, for example, an integrity commissioner. I think the challenge for us here's an example, right? I write these things on a list: core program and service, right? We're talking about what's the levy's going to pay for. And then you have the additional expense, of course, of appointing an ombudsman or an outside complaint procedure. So these are all things, but they do have an associated cost. So right now, we don't have a legislative requirement to appoint, for example, an integrity commissioner with the corresponding cost that comes with that. But I'm not in disagreement that may be the process going forward that we have to adopt as the best practice or standard. But I do think as a board, if we can come to an agreement or consensus without that appointment of a commissioner and the additional expense. Having said that, Archie, if it was a severe enough situation, I think we would always involve our solicitor or an independent integrity commissioner anyways. That would be my practice. Right now, I'm just saying we don't have a legislative requirement to appoint that higher level of integrity commissioner and the corresponding expense that would come with doing that. So I've done it as an economical at this time, but it may not be the process the board wishes for the bylaws, and we can certainly go back on this one if you wish.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate the economics of it, but we don't want to give the impression, especially if it's a serious enough offense, and you've already addressed, spoke to that. If it's a serious enough formal complaint, we don't want to make it look like we're, the fox guarding the hen house sort of thing. Sorry for that, metaphor. But yeah, that would be my only, I would, caution that we should be looking at.
Mr. Chair, it's Mike Brown again. Through you to Archie, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Go
ahead. Twofold. One, just on the first item, I should have clarified when Archie, when I did call into those meetings in the first time I was on the board, it was because I was at a conference, right? Like I was at a municipal conference for the board, and I still wanted to participate at least in some level. So I would call in and just listen and occasionally contribute. In terms of, and I agree with you that anyone calling from the Turks and Caicos, I think the former Minister of Finance's example should be a very strong lesson as to why you should not do that. Anyway, all that to say, though, on the question about complaints in terms of handling, I think a complaint against a board member. I think that the only thing I might suggest, Angela, is that, and candidly, kudos to Archie, because I didn't really focus on that section of the bylaw, but what might be worth having is just having Eric take a look at that section and see if there's any way we could just simply add in, at least for the time being, the option of that committee or board to refer the matter to some sort of a private investigator. I want to stress I have zero relationship with the fellow, but there is a fellow called John Curtis. He's in Kingston, but he does a lot of both meeting investigations and auditing, or whatever you want to call it, when there are complaints about councillor conduct. I know he was the, I want to say, the meeting auditor or whatever for the township of Elizabethtown Kittley, and I served on its council for a term. And you know, that might be someone that we would potentially, having that option, at least in the bylaws, would then give that committee the opportunity to say, you know what, this is serious enough that we want to kick it to an outside source for a second opinion or an investigation, and then take it from there. Just a suggestion.
So just I just want to thanks, Michael, but I think this is the process right now. Angela, if there is enough serious complaint, it will go to our board, to the committee, and then we can discuss it with the clerk. And then if it needed, we can also hire a third party and IC, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't it? This is the process as it sits right now.
I'm looking to see, but I think the comments of Councillor Mellon and Michael Brown, they're both astute comments, and I think we'll look back and we can improve this. I think with that addendum that we would, you know, look into the appointment of an integrity commissioner should certain circumstances
All right.
merit it. That's an excellent. I think it's just an excellent comment and a good idea. And we haven't. It's not that we haven't talked about it. It's just the associated cost with that. So we just, you know, didn't put it in. So I think it is an appropriate practice, and I think it is the best practice and the standard. So it's I think perfect. Good comments.
Okay, that's good. So are you okay with that, Archie? Is okay. I still have questions. I'm going to move to Bill and Steve after. So, Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. A comment and a couple of questions. The comment first, regarding virtual meetings, I've had discussions with other organizations that I'm involved with, and there's a feeling from many, many people that we'll probably never go back to the full meetings always that we've had in the past. And I think best practices will come into this, and we'll be doing a lot of discussing about this. But whether or not we ever, there are some suggestions from some of the organizations I'm associated with that in the future, we probably should have some of the meetings live and some of the meetings virtually for several reasons. So that's just to say that I think that question will come up as it moves along. The first question I have is the appointment from agriculture. Do we know yet if this is just going to be a general appointment or if it's going to be made on request of a specific agricultural group in an authority? Have we any information on that at this stage?
It's permissive. It's not mandatory. So it says may. It does not say shall.
Thank you.
So I'm not expecting 36. I guess the answer is I'm not expecting 36 representatives. I'm expecting that where that's been identified as an issue, that the minister may make those appointments.
Thank you. And lastly, you've partially answered this one. I was questioning whether or not this recommendation should be on hold till Eric and others take a look at the section that was raised by two former members. But if it's felt that it can be approved with the addendum that will be reviewed, I leave it to your better discretion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bill. We'll move to Steve.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I too would want us to be open to the idea of allowing people to attend meetings remotely. Again, I already, in my counselor position, have to plan my holidays or vacations around this, and which is fine. But if you also have a working spouse, you have to plan around that. And there are times when, you know, I take this responsibility seriously, and I really appreciate the ability to participate. And so if there is the opportunity for us to attend, not necessarily from the beach, but from our hotel room and actively participate, that would be good. I do agree with your comments, though, Angela, about a closed session. I do think it would be prudent to have a closed session be face-to-face. But I would hope that, again, given the fact that we now have more firsthand experience on dealing with virtual attendance, that this is something we might be able to consider if it's manageable. The other point I'd like to make as well, with respect to if we're looking at formal complaints, etc., and we are looking to engage a third party at cost, I agree we want to take a careful approach. I do think we absolutely need to allow individuals the opportunity to issue formal complaints and to have them properly and fully addressed, because they will very likely be of a very serious nature. At the same time, we need to be careful because we want to be sure that we can filter out serious complaints without incurring a whole lot of cost by our process. If somebody feels that their complaint has not been addressed to their liking, even though we feel that we've got the professional staff or third party, the ombudsman or whoever, who have given it a credible hearing, we don't want a disgruntled person to find ways to drive up costs and effectively create, their own punitive outcome for the Conservation Authority. So I do think we have to enter into anything that has the potential to drive significant cost. We want to do it very carefully and wisely so that it can get the job done, the necessary job done of addressing formal complaints without necessarily creating a spiral effect on cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. A good comment, and we appreciate all the comment that has been received so far. So Angela.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Are we ready to move do we need a motion to the amendment, or it's already been included and you and Eric will do the work?
We can do the work. It depends on the level of comfort of the board. If we consider those to be substantive, or if you want us to do some additional research on both the two components, which will be, I think the hard part, these are not major amendments to our existing bylaws. And I think that we have to, I think we can do those as work that we do. I'm just curious if we want to add them to the resolution. We could just do with amendments discussed regarding, or with additional, sorry, I should read the recommendation as it is and then ask if there's a friendly amendment to that. So the Board of Directors approve housekeeping amendments to South Nation Conservation's administrative bylaws. And if someone wants to do friendly amendment to, and then further that regarding the two provisions on remote attendance as well as complaint resolution process. Is that
that's great.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the friendly amendment motion if that's acceptable.
Thank you. I'm okay. Yes, Michael. And
so I would just say something to the effect, Angela, and further that staff be directed to make such additional amendments as are required to permit remote attendance at meetings post-pandemic, provided such attendance is permitted under the Conservation Authorities Act. And further, that staff be directed to make such amendments as are necessary to provide, to formally provide a committee investigating a complaint against a director to retain external counsel to investigate and make such recommendations as are necessary, in respect of that matter, sort of from a conflict resolution perspective. I'll put it that way. But you can gussy it up how you like, Angela. It's just that's sort of the language I would suggest.
Yeah, I think the first one is fine regarding such additional amendments post-pandemic, provided they meet with the requirements of the Conservation Authorities Act. And the second part, I would simply add to the existing formal complaints resolution process, an option in there or a requirement in there at the vote of the Board of Directors to engage the services of an integrity commissioner for complaint resolution on formal complaint.
That would be perfect.
Okay.
I would second that motion, Archie. Yeah.
Thank you, Archie. So we have a mover and a seconder for the whole resolution, and it's all in favor. Motion carried. Thanks, Angela. And thank you, Eric, very much.
Thank you.
We'll move to 6C on the agenda from page 73 to 80. Recommendation Board Director approve the revised standing committee term of reference and standing committee members application process. It was sent to us with our agenda package, page 73 to 80. I think if you have a question, or Rhonda and John are here. Seeing none.
Brief
Yes.
comment. I
Yes.
think we have someone on the line, Mr. Chair, with their hand up.
Yes, Pierre.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to see the amendments change to putting something in place for more of an application process and that kind of stuff, so that we make sure that residents have an opportunity and it's not automatically just the same members that come back over and over and over. That being said, I always find that large committees of this nature can be cumbersome. But I think that if we find that it's working well, I'm okay with it, if you will. But I do like the fact that I always appreciate volunteers being there, but I don't want to be cumbersome in the sense that we have trouble finding quorum because all of a sudden so many people start missing. So I'd rather have a small group of dedicated individuals as opposed to people who just have their name on the board and show up now and then. So, but I appreciate now that we have a formal process on how to move forward. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Pierre. And I do want to thank you personally. I know that you and I have a discussion over the term of reference of committee, and I really appreciate your engagement. I know that you put a lot of a good idea into the mix, so I personally appreciate everything you've done with the staff. I know John and Rhonda has been working on that one also with Angela, so thank you. Bill, I see that you put your hands up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that board members have probably noted in this that there would be a board committee that would deal each year with the applications, and there will be an application process. And although it's an extra committee and an extra process, I think it's worthwhile because sometimes to date, it's been somebody saying, I think my friend John would be a good person on it, and everybody generally agrees. So I like the process that's been proposed. Thank you for the work you've done.
Thank you, Bill, for your comment. And Angela, anything can we move forward?
We can. This is we've seen in the draft changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, the minister requiring standing committees of conservation authorities. And I just want to again remind everybody this is not new to us. We are conservation authorities who's had 4 standing committees for over 30 years. So we wanted to make sure our process was up to date, and hopefully when others see these examples, they can be best practices that are implemented in other situations as well. So we had some questions from the board. Again, excellent board discussion as always. So we wanted to have this done ahead of what may come out, and perhaps it will be considered if it's viewed.
Thank you, Angela, for your comment. I totally agree with you. And we've been saying it before. We say it again. We are on. We do have a great processes, and we do have most of our requirement by the ministry when they released it. We looked at it, and I remember we did a presentation at South Nation before the pandemic, and we discussed it. What is the changes? What's the impact on the new act? And there was not much changes for our CAs, and that's a testament on how we are running our South Nation Conservation Authority. So I'd like to have a mover and seconder for the recommendation, please. I see Pierre and I see Dana. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. We move to next items on the agenda. It is agenda item 6D. Recommendation Board Directors approve the submission of the following funding applications. $2 billion tree program requesting $16,890 for SNC forest tree planting on SNC 5 and SNC 7 in fall 2021. La Flèche Wetland Trust Fund requesting $250,000 over 1 year for land acquisition. Stormont Dundas Glengarry Regional Tourism requesting $5,000 over 1 year for Warwick Conservation Area Bridge replacement. Can I have a mover and second, and we'll have discussion? I see Archie and Steve. Any discussion or any comment on the item? I know Rhonda is here to answer any question. Steve.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want to again commend staff for their continued watch on opportunities to improve the various conservation areas, etc. I'm focusing primarily on Warwick, although it's the lowest of the costs on these. But again, I think the fact that we're looking at keeping up the standards of the quality of the trails and looking to improve, especially given the added traffic that's there. And I suspect, even though we all hope that COVID is going to come to a close soon, I think the exposure to the various assets that South Nation provides to the community, I think people are going to appreciate them for many years to come. So again, I just want to commend staff for their continued vigilance at making our community a better place.
Thank you, Steve. Well said, and I echo your remarks. I totally agree with you. There is no argument there, so thank you very much. And any other comment? Okay, all in favor? I see. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rhonda. We'll move next to the next request for approval is recommendation board director approve the floodplain and regulation mapping series update overview. I see Sandra. Sandra, you have a presentation, or?
I can go over the report if you would like short.
Please go ahead, Sandra.
All right. So understanding natural hazards is an important tool for land use planning and emergency management. So as you know, we delineate risk areas and we use that maps to prepare the regulations mapping. So the updates to the Section 28 mapping is prepared following the protocol developed by Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry and Conservation Ontario. There are two types of updates that we do. One is maintenance. The maintenance is defined as additions or modifications to regulation schedule with the intent of improving the regulated area. There are minor changes and don't require board of directors approval. In general, I can give you an example. It could be that MNRF update the wetland layer. So we have to do the changes in our regulations map due to those updates. The second update is the major mapping changes, and you have been, I have brought over the years several studies, and due to those studies completed for floodplain and erosion, we update the regulations maps. So the major mapping updates require board approval, and they have been brought to the board of directors separately as studies and completed after the public consultation. That's all. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Sandra, very much for the report. Any any question or comment for Sandra? Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? I see Archie and I see Jerry. The board director approved the floodplain and regulations mapping series update overview. All in favor? Perfect. Motion carried. Thank you very much, Sandra.
You're welcome.
Next item is agenda item 6F, page 85-87, and that's update on the City of Ottawa expansion land. And I think, Alison, do you want to say, you want to give us quick through the report?
Sure, I'll give you a quick one here. I know that we've brought a few reports on the expansion and the City of Ottawa official plan update. It's going on live for us, and it's of course a lot of fun looking at the policy updates. But what's really important, I think, for the board to know is that this is the last time the city plans to physically update their urban expansion boundary in the next century, which is a very applaudable goal for the city. But for South Nation, a significant portion of the new expansion area is within our watershed, and this results in potentially a new community joining our watershed, which we're referring to currently as the Taywin lands. There is a map included with the report, and this is expected to be home to approximately 40,000 people. So this is obviously very exciting. The intention of this area is to have a community that will be compact and sustainable, carbon light, for example. So as a planner, getting very excited about the opportunity to work with the landowners here and with the city. In that vein, we have scoped the area and done a quick environmental review and provided comments to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, as they'll be ultimately evaluating the proposal for this new 445 hectare development. There are a number of natural features. There are wetlands, what we call core natural areas, and some natural heritage and hazard constraints. We do know there is some floodplain, unstable slopes, unstable soils, and we know as well that the Bear Brook River is experiencing a lot of drainage limitations and is currently under stress from the East Urban community as well. So there are things that South Nation is very interested in, but also very well equipped to discuss and to work with the city on resolving some of these constraints. So just drawing attention in the report to the fact that we have really great timing. I don't know if Sandra and Michelle knew this was coming before anyone else, but we had already scoped the area for floodplain updates this year, which is fantastic. And we also are completing a catchment study, which goes out and kind of evaluates a lot of the natural features on the landscape. So it's just an exceptional serendipitous thing that has put us in a great position to assist the city, but also to help protect the environment in that area. Another thing to mention is that there is going to be an aspect of reconciliation within this development, and South Nation does have experience working with our First Nation communities in many large projects, for example, the Port of Johnstown. So we hope to be able to help the city with this goal that they've set of spirit of reconciliation. At this time, we've provided formal comments back to Municipal Affairs, and we've also circulated city staff on a copy of those comments. And we've also provided city staff with a list of all the sites we're completing fieldwork in and all the streams and catchments that we're doing floodplain mapping on. So looking forward to working on this over the next couple of months. I think it may move quickly, and just excited to show off South Nation's expertise in this new area.
Thank you, Alison. Any comment or question?
Mr. Chair, Mike Brown, very supportive.
Thank you, Michael. And I just I do want to offer my. I know that South Nation is putting a lot of work behind the expansion, and I know that most just to the board that most of that land it is in my ward exists right now, and I know in 2022 in the new boundary in the next boundary review, that whole land will be in Osgood Ward. So this is I know it's a challenging time, and I know that there is a lot of heritage feature in that area. We have a lots of unstable soil. We have a lots of work and study ahead of us, but it's moving so fast. So I appreciate all the work that South Nation with the expertise that you've been offering and their comment to the city and including to the province, to the Minister for Municipal Affairs. So looking forward for that project, and I want to thank you very much for the hard work. I know that we're doing a lot of due diligence around that expansion, so thank you very much. Can I have a mover and a second that the board director to receive and file the updated City of Ottawa expansion lands? I see Jerry and I see Bill. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Alison. Next item on the agenda, we're moving to update agenda item 6J, page 88 to 89. I think this is a septic, and this is a very lovely topic that we talk about it. And I know that a lots of people depend on our program. So I'm going to let Alison take us through this? Say a few words.
Sure. So we do include our map here. You can see the work going on all the way across the watershed. And as Angela pointed out, lots of activity up in Hawkesbury and down in areas outside of the watershed as well. No specific comments other than the team is very busy, and they're not used to being this busy at this time of year, but they're handling it like champions, of course. So
thank you, Alison, and convey our thank you also to Monique and her team. We appreciate all the work they do. Can I have a mover and a seconder, or do you have a question first? Seeing none, we have a recommendation. The SNC board directors receive and file the on-site sewage permits update issued update. I see Dana and Steve. All in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carried. Next on agenda is item 6H, and also Alison will take us through it if we have any questions. Planning activity. Alison, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of severance applications. There's actually a lot of rural development, a lot of rural lot creation, which we don't normally see as much, but lots of people, I think, looking for their beautiful 5 acres out in the country where they can run around and get some fresh air. Also lots of site plans coming in some municipalities we don't normally see site plans. So site plans are great because it means it's kind of a bigger, more complex development, maybe commercial, maybe industrial. So seeing some coming in Castleman, seeing Nation, some interesting files, lots of challenges, lots of people trying to find their way through processes, and that's what we do best, is get people through to their end goal. And I would also draw attention to the technical reviews. We did mention it earlier, but there's a number of technical reviews. I'm absolutely shocked and impressed by how much work's been done by our engineer team, and many of it for very large scale development, which can be very complex. So as you guys have heard many times and probably heard enough, we're busy.
We can see from the amount of the report and the amount of application you guys been working on. This is amazing. And you know what? I understand and I hear where you're coming from. It's the housing market and the prices driving people out, I guess, to different areas. And we're seeing unusual amount of application in area we haven't seen, and the growth is happening. So that shows that there is people still like to come and live in our community, and that's why we're here to be able to assist and help them, welcome them to our watershed. So thank you very much, Alison. Any question or comment? Thank you very much. I think we have a recommendation. We have a recommendation. The SNC board directors receive and file the planning activity update. Mover and a seconder. I see Bill and Pierre. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next in the agenda, we have items 6I and page 94 to 95. Jeff is here with us on the call. If you want to just talk a little bit to us about your report, Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this report is the usual housekeeping report that discusses the permits that have been issued since, in this case, since March 5th. So they come to you retroactively and give you an opportunity to see what's been done, and the permits that were issued that are in compliance with the current SNC policies. So that's what this represents, and we're off to a little bit of a slow start, but like I said earlier, we're up over 61 applications this year, so we're about to ramp up and get busy as usual. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We appreciate all the work you do on the field and in the office. Any question or comment to Jeff? Seeing none, we have a recommendation. SNC board directors approve permits 33 to 41 issued under Ontario Regulation 170/06, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shorelines and watercourses. I see John, mover, and a seconder is Bill. Any question, concern? And all in favor? Thank you very much, Jeff. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we have a request, item 7A, page 96 to 100. I know that Carl available for any question or any, but I'll go with the recommendation first. The board directors received and filed the money received report for March 2021, and further that the board approved the disbursement register of 479,136.33 for March 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I see Archie and Jerry. Any question? Carl is here if you have a comment or anything. Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Carl. Next item on the agenda is item number, I think we're moving to, sorry about that here. It's 7B on page 101, and Rhonda's here for, we have a recommendation board director approve an increase to the service contract for 2021 tree planting to plant approximately 177,000 trees per year at approximate amount of 85,000 plus HST. Rhonda, you have a comment or you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just would like to remind the board that we do issue tree planting contracts on a 2-year term. So we did approve an upset limit last February, which was based on a much smaller number of trees being planted. Hence the reason we're coming back today to increase that limit. It's reflective of the record-setting number of trees we've sold this year, and we'll be planting with our contractor starting next week, actually.
Rhonda, can you mention also the cost recovery component of that? These costs are covered from where?
Yes, thank you, Angela. The additional cost is covered through subsidies from Forest Ontario, both under the 50 million tree program and the Highway of Heroes. So the increased number of trees means an increased number in subsidies. There is also recovery from property owners for the purchase of the trees being planted.
Thank you very much, Rhonda and Angela, for the clarification. I see Archie has his hands up. Archie, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, it is cost recovery. I mean, we got outside funding sources. Maybe you can, clarify here for me. Under the discussion on your report, it says there was budgeted 45,000 plus HST. And then down on the financial part, compliance with budget, there's a reference to 62,000. Original budget for tree planting contract services was 62,000. Why the two different numbers, I guess, what I'm asking.
Okay, so the 45,000 was the amount we brought to the board for approval in February of 2020. So that was based on an estimate of about 120,000 trees. When we brought the board the budget in November, we increased the annual amount based on the number of orders we had at that time. And then again, over the winter, we've sold way more trees than we anticipated. So the difference is the amount that we had starting in the beginning of the year last year was based on previous year plantings. The budget was adjusted to reflect orders to date, which was the 65,000. And then the 85,000 reflects actual tree sales as of this spring.
Okay, it just keep going up. Why can't it go the other way? But that's fine. Let's go on. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Subsidies go up with it. Is the good news.
Everything going up, Archie. Thank you for your question. Any other question? And I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. I see Michael and Pierre. All in favor? Thank you very much, board member, and that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Rhonda. So now we have a supplemental agenda, and we'll go to the item number 1 from page 3 to 4, and all of you, I'm sure, received that this morning, and it is on the portal if anyone haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it is available for most of the board members. The recommendation board director approves signing a memorandum of understanding with Forest Ontario for the Grassland Stewardship Initiative program. And Michelle is here. You want to talk quick about the program, Michelle?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So in February, the board approved applying to Grasslands Ontario for funding under the Grassland Stewardship Initiative. This is a provincially funded initiative. We were successful, so it was great news for us. The project is going to enhance and restore prime bobolink and eastern meadowlark habitat on SNC 164, which is the property where we completed the healing place. There's a portion of that property that has already very good bobolink habitat. We've seen bobolink there. And what we're going to be doing is working with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada on the project to come up with a hay harvesting program for the property to improve the habitat for bobolink while also keeping it part of an agriculturally productive crop there. So the project is going to start this spring. We're going to do an initial assessment of the site and then work through into the fall. And then there's also follow-up monitoring at year 3 and year 5. So the term of the agreement is until March 31st, 2025. And we received just a little over $17,700 for the project.
That's very good news, Michelle. Thank you very much. We're very happy with this initiative. I see Bill have his hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to refer to paragraph number 2. And I was wondering if I could request that whenever there's a report like this made for people like me that don't know the numbers very well, if under SNC 164 there could just be in brackets or an addition of saying near what community or near what municipality or within to give me a better idea. And perhaps there's a place in the near future for a map to come out listing all of these, and maybe it's already out and I just have overlooked it, but listing all the municipalities with the numbers that show where these blocks of land are, because I don't remember them very well. So just a brief comment about where they are would be helpful to me.
Yeah, not a problem. And the SNC 164 is near Shanley for your reference. So it's in Edwardsburg Cardinal. And if you're interested on the portal online, we have all our properties are showing on the portal. So you could go and take a look at any of the properties in the different communities they're near, and they're all labeled with the numbers or the name if they have a specific name, such as our conservation areas.
Thank you very much.
Noted, Bill. I think Angela, I saw her nodding her head, so they will next time if there is we'll put some reference to the numbers under the property. So thank you very much, Michelle. I have more questions. Don't move, don't go anywhere. Steve Zier, I have a question for you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Michelle. I noticed that this agreement reaches until 2025, and it feels like it could be extended beyond that. But I'm just wondering, this is more a general question. When we build a habitat like this, I suspect it depends on the species that we're building the habitat for. But do they return year after year and to the same habitat? And how does that underpin the importance of having a long-term commitment, in the sense that, and I don't get the sense from this one, but I just wonder if I could understand a little bit better of how you consider this. Like if we're building a habitat to which certain species will return year after year after year, then the contract expires and we decide they're going to do something totally different to that property. How disruptive is that to this particular species if and when something like that is to happen, and how do we assess that when we go through a practice like this?
So in this case, the habitat is already existing on the property, so that was fortunate for us. It just needs a little bit of work, and it's the grassland birds in this case that are using the habitat. And what we do with a lot of our properties, we have stewardship plans or management plans, if you will, for our properties. So if we've identified specific habitat that is rare or is important, should be kept on the landscape, that's something that's identified in those plans. And those plans are used to kind of guide our management of those properties. So the habitat in this case for the bobolink was identified in our original plan for the property, so it's already listed in there, and so this project ties very nicely with that plan.
Great. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you, Michelle. Bill put his hands back up, so go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I think I would like to add that one of the reasons we're establishing territories or areas for these grassland birds is that farmers are more and more harvesting very much earlier. And because they're harvesting earlier, it's disrupting the nesting in the fields. So therefore, and the farmers are doing it because they get better protein in the hay they're taking off, etc. So one of the reasons that these other areas are set up is to sort of compensate for that and assist these birds. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'm not sure if it's only me, but I'm hearing a lot of statics from your mic, or is it just me? I'm not sure if I'm hearing it. Carl, can you please assist, see if it's from our side or from Bill's side? Help him to maybe the jack.
Yeah, I think it's from Past Chair Smurl's end. My only suggestion would be to turn off the video on his end. May improve the audio connection.
Thank you very much, Carl. I think Bill, did you hear that? If you want to shut your camera.
Yes, I did. And has the static been all the time or just recently?
No, it's good now. It's perfect now. So whatever you did, just leave it the way it is.
Okay, thank you.
We can hear you properly. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Michelle. Do we have a mover and a seconder for the board director approve this for this recommendation? I see Bill is putting his hand and Steve. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, Michelle. Next item on supplementary agenda is item, I'm just trying to figure out, 2A. And I have a recommendation, and there is a report in the agenda. The board directors receive and file the estimated statement of operation for the year ending December 31st, 2021, as of March 31st, 2021. And Linda's on the line if we have any question. Linda, anything you want to add, or?
No, this is our annual that we start up our report every month to the board. Good morning, board. This is a statement of operations, and as always, every month our senior management and leads of various projects just review their expenditures, review the revenues, and we take that into consideration when we're doing our forecast. So at this point in time, we're pretty much status quo on the bottom line, with a small surplus being estimated at this point at $3,000.
Thank you very much, Linda. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I figured I'll make sure to give you an opportunity to, if any board member have a question. So can I have a mover and a seconder on the motion, please? I see Dana and I see Jerry. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you.
And number 3A, we have a land acquisition. And I think, do we have to go in camera for that? So I see
Yes, so
yes, go ahead.
yes, Mr. Chair. So at this time, we do have a proposed land acquisition that we would discuss in closed session. So we do require at this time simply the resolution to move into closed session, and then the quick reminder that we go into closed session with the other link, and then we'll come back to this session once we are concluded.
Thank you, Angela. I know that I hope all the board members receive the other link from Carl, and we will. It's 11:13 now. We can suspend this and we move right away to the. So by 11:20, I'm hoping we're all again into the board. So request for approval land acquisition. So the board director move into closed session. Do we need a mover and seconder, or we're good?
Yes, I need a mover and seconder, please.
I see Bill and I see Steve. All in favor? Okay, board member, seeing you in 6-7 minutes. Thank you very much.
And welcome back, everybody. Reminder, we're in open session and we're just waiting for a few board members to rejoin from closed session.
Thanks, Angela. I think we have a few members, but we don't have a quorum yet. Maybe? Let me check. I think we have 7 so far.
And we have 7 back, you think, Mr. Chair Drews?
We do
just
have
waiting
7.
for, just looking to see who we have.
We
Just going
only
to do a little attendance here.
Yeah.
Just see 6, Angela.
We're missing Dana and Michael.
Okay. I'm admitting Archie. Okay. So I'm looking like I have back. Just going to go through my list and see who's back. Chair Derues. Did we see Pierre Leroux yet?
Yeah,
Bill,
I'm here.
He's here.
Pierre's back. Bill Smurl, I admitted. I do see Councillor John Hunter. I do see Councillor Archie Mellon. I have Francois Saint Amour absent for the entirety. Do we have a representative from Catherine Kitt's office on?
Yes, Rachel is on.
Rachel is on, thank you. Jerry Couts back?
Yeah.
Steve Densham?
No.
Jennifer Cashew?
Yes, Steve Dencham's here.
Steve Densham, thank you. Jennifer Cashew on? And how about Michael Brown?
I don't see him.
Okay, a couple missing, but we do have a quorum if we wish to proceed.
Yeah, perfect. It's not like they were on closed session, so we'll go ahead and start while they're logging in. But so, do we need a motion to the board director meeting move into open session? I'll have Mr. John Hunter and Pierre Leroux. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have a recommendation and we have a motion we have to move, I guess, from the closing session. Angela, is it ready?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So the motion that we have from closed session regarding property acquisition is that the Board of Directors approve the acquisition of property 1 in the municipality of South Dundas to an upset limit as discussed, plus ancillary costs. So looking for mover and seconder for that recommendation.
I see John Hunter and Archie. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And that concludes our closing session and our agenda for today. We have upcoming dates meetings. Third Thursday at 9 a.m. unless indicated otherwise. Our next meeting is May 20th, 2021 and June 17th, 2021. And as usual, July will have no meeting, and the meeting after that will be August 19, 2020. And reminder, we have AMO virtual conference on August 15 to 18, 2021. I think Angela probably will remind us in the next meeting to see if we're going to have a delegation or not, and we'll assess this situation as we go from meeting to another, right, Angela?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next is, do we have any future motion to the board or any discussion of SNC issues? I will ask board members. I see Archie, please go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last South Dundas Council meeting, there was in our general consent portion of our agenda, a request, I guess, if you will, from the Butterfly Project. And I'm not sure if John is still on on the line, or Tyler Campbell. I believe that organization or that group has approached South Nation. They're approaching South Dundas, and they're approaching SD&G, also the counties. And I would just be like to maybe if John or Tyler maybe at the next board meeting could give us an update on what the discussions they had. I guess what I'm trying to get across is that where there's not duplication of maybe participation in this butterfly project. It was discussed to a certain degree at our council meeting, but it'd be nice to know if South Nation is going to be participating in that butterfly project, I guess it's called. So that would be about all I'd have to offer, Mr. Chair.
And
thank you very much, Archie. John is on the line, I think.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Archie, we can bring an update back to the board at our next meeting, but you're correct. We have been involved with this initiative in the past, and we met with a few individuals last year to discuss pollinator habitat throughout the counties. I understand that Christina and a few others have gone ahead to reach out to each of the partner municipalities in SD&G to make that request, and we do have a meeting coming up with them to review how best to proceed with that.
Thank you very much. Archie, okay with that? Thank you. Any other comment or question to staff, or any further motion? Seeing none, thank you very much. We do not have a delegation at number 11. I think this is postponed. Angela will give us a heads up when we're gonna have a presentation and delegation from the Healing Lodge. And before adjournment, I want to thank you all. I want to thank all the public members that they were with us this morning. And I want to thank all the board members for participating via team, and the staff is making this available behind the scene. I know this is a difficult time, but I hope everyone will stay safe and everyone will look after their family. And hopefully soon enough, we'll all be getting a needle in our arm and when our time comes. Can I have recommendation? The board director meeting April 15, 2021 be adjourned at 12:48 a.m. Can I have?
Sorry, it's 11:48 a.m., Mr. Chair.
You're right, 11:48. I'm ahead of myself. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Archie and John, all in favor? Thank you very much all. Have a great rest of the week. I know we're still working hard this week, so we'll talk to you. We'll see you next meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.